One of the key features was US interest rates going up. We're likely to see a little bit more of that, but in fact I think that will slow down now. This impacted commodity prices. They pulled back. There was a certain amount of nervousness, particularly with Trump starting to argue with China, that China had been unfair with their tariffs over the years, particularly with tariffs on US automobiles. China never likes to lose face. But in fact, I think what they'll do is they'll have to give in on quite a number of fronts before they finally come to an agreement with Trump. So rather than saying, oh, we're going to give in on a whole bunch of issues all at once, I think they'll stage this so that when we get to the 1st of March deadline that's now been set for the tariff negotiations, that actually there will be already the basis or much of the agreement will already be in place, I think. Things like Brexit are a complete sideshow when all these larger macro forces are going on. Investors are more worried about the debt pile in Italy, for example, and how the European Union is going to deal with that than anything to do with the UK. So park that as a smaller issue. I think the US is not going to be able to continue to raise interest rates ad infinitum. The US dollar is likely to weaken a bit further. Commodities are likely to rise on the back of that. Deflation is still a bit of an issue. I think we don't have a lot of inflation in the system, but I think a little bit of that is more likely to come through, which is good for gold. And I think the battery metals, are going to gain new momentum again. As we saw in the first half of this year, I think we're likely to see that coming back in again in the new year, where people are ramping up their gigafactories, and also policymakers are looking at putting in more infrastructure into the charging of electric vehicles to meet the new demand that's coming through. So we want to generate a lot more of our electricity from wind power and solar power, and this means that when the wind's not blowing and the sun's not shining, we're going to have to store electricity. Now, Elon Musk has been providing these mega storage factories in Australia and California, using lithium-ion batteries, but also vanadium redox batteries are likely to come in. And there's a particularly interesting company called Bushveld Minerals that is not only mining vanadium and producing very huge cash flows off the vanadium mine that they're producing from at the moment, but also is going to produce the vanadium electrolyte for these vanadium redox batteries, which are effectively the next generation of grid storage, and these are going to, I think these are going to roll out really quite fast over the next few years. So we see Bushveld Minerals turning itself from being, shall we say, a cash flow heavy miner to being a technology business producing electrolyte, rolling out vanadium redox batteries and financing all of that through lease finance with the banks. We expect the ilmenite sector to grow next year. Global growth continues to raise demand for titanium pigments, and so this is good for overall demand. Ilmenite producers are John Meyer or Base Resources. Base Resources, run by Tim Carstens, very good reputation in the market, has done a great job for the company. He's taken the company, or he's diversifying it away from Kenya, where they have an operation running, into Madagascar, and by all accounts that's a pretty exciting project going forwards. Then we should look at Blue Jay Mining. Again, the feasibility study for that is going to come out. We're looking for a resource upgrade. It's already got the world's highest grade, a very large scale ilmenite project, which is a titanium mineral sand in Greenland. That is just waiting for acquisition by one of the majors, or maybe even just an offtake agreement. But something will come along and change that dramatically, in my view, next year. The rise of the gigafactory and the development of quite a number of these in China and to be planned around the world is going to really drive new commodity demand, particularly for rare earths. Looking at companies like Makango operating in Malawi with in fact, what is looking like a really exciting discovery now. Although they've been working on this project for some time, they've now started drilling a bit to the side of the main deposit, and it's coming up with spectacularly high grades of rare earth materials. These are heavy rare earths that are used in electric vehicles for the permanent magnets and other components that are really important in this electric vehicle revolution.